All right.
Hello, everyone. Oh, sorry. Hi, Marley.
Hi. I was just gonna just say, hey, you're invited.
Well, welcome everyone to another live community classroom with Michaels. Today we have the lovely Marley Bird with us, ready for another exciting class. Today we'll be crocheting the super cute bunny motif. My name is Patricia from Your Inspirations, and I'll be helping with any questions that you might have during today's class. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. You'll see the chat button somewhere below. And we'll be sure to answer them. While we're giving you some time to join the class, feel free to let us know where you're watching from. And just a reminder that today's class is being recorded, and you can find the recording at michaels.com/classes.
Perfect. Thanks, Patricia. Hey, everybody. So I was looking down here at the gallery view. There's a few of you in here that I recognize, which is lovely. And a lot of you that I don't. So welcome. If this is your first time here, I'm glad you're here. As Patricia said, my name is Marley Bird. I am the owner of marleybird.com. I'm a knitwear and crochet designer and a YouTube instructor for knitting and crochet. So I do it all. I love it so very much. Whether you are a beginner crocheter or advanced crocheter, I have a little bit of something for everybody. And I like to think that I explain things in such a way that I don't bore you too much, but I give you everything you need to know to work along. So we are making a bunny today, bunny garland. And the pattern itself is listed as intermediate. And I know that in the class description, it's listed as beginner. So what we're going to do is go nice and slow. And if there are places where I can make adjustments to make it easier for a beginner, I will tell you how to do that. And we're just going to work on this together. As Patricia mentioned, this is getting recorded. So if there is something that's giving you a little bit of a hang up as you're working along with me, I encourage you just to set your work down, sit back, listen to the class, and then when the recording comes out, pick up your hook and your yarn and tackle the class once again, where you can rewind it and fast forward and do all the things. But make sure you join me here. If you have questions, ask them in the chat room. Patricia will jump in, and if there's something that's like, hey, Marley, they want you to see that, or they want to see that again, she'll let me know. Are you guys good with that? Perfect. I think the pattern, the pattern is in the chat. So you can get that pattern link there, and we will jump in from here. So I'm going to go ahead and go down to my hands. And yes, somebody mentioned I'm in my new studio. It's lovely. I love it so very much. Okay, make sure everything is good. You guys can still hear me all right? Hands up. Yes? Awesome. Sweet. Okay, so this particular pattern, the bunny garland, we start off with, I have a little swatch that we can jump to, but we're going to start off right here in the center of this pattern, okay? And we start off this center with a magic loop. Now, a magic loop is something that even some advanced crocheters really struggle with, and it's something that we can bypass by even just working into a chain stitch, and that would be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off to show you how to begin with a magic loop. And if you are struggling with it, we're going to talk about how you can make adjustments to it. All right. So I want to just preface that with that here. In that magic loop, we're going to do 8 single crochets. And at the end of that 8 single crochets, we're going to join with a slip stitch, which is going to create this circle. From there, on each subsequent round, we're going to work increases, and the increases are going to be worked by putting a chain between each of these big puffy stitches, which coincidentally are called puff stitches. They are created pretty easily. It's just you're yarning over your hook several times as you go into a stitch and you pull up your loops. The hardest part is going to be being able to maintain tension and consistency with these loops. So if you struggle with it at the beginning, just know that's perfectly normal. It just takes some practice. Once we go past the puff stitches, we're back to some single crochets, and then we're done working in the round. We're going to work back and forth just like this and create the top of the bunny with some ears. So I got this particular piece to that point, just in case we don't get to this point in our demonstration. I'll be able to pull this in and we can finish up the class with the top of the bunny. All right, everybody with me here? So I'm going to set that aside. I am using Red Heart Super Saver right here, Red Heart Super Saver in the color Jade today. It's a very pretty color. And I'm using an eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter hook, just a basic Susan Bates hook. And I'm going to follow along with the pattern. And the first thing to note in the pattern, it talks about the chain 1 that is used to complete the puff stitch does not count as the chain 1 between the individual puff stitches. That doesn't make much sense to you now, but it will make sense to you as we go along, okay? So just follow along with me and we're going to get there at the end. All right. First thing, it says make an adjustable ring. So I'm going to read this from the pattern itself. It says wrap the yarn around your forefinger with the yarn tail to the left and under the working yarn. I'm already confused. All right. So here's what I do. You guys have seen me make a slip knot, right? So I put the yarn tail in the palm of my hand. I take my working yarn, I wrap it around my forefinger and my middle finger, and I come back up. I turn my hand over. I'm going to come under. I'm going to grab this yarn right here and I'm going to pull it up. Now here's where the difference is going to be. Usually if I'm making a slip knot, I'll now take out these fingers and just pull this little knot closed. What I'm going to do, I'm going to leave this opening there though. So when I take my fingers out this time, I'm going to leave that opening. I'm not going to pull it closed. You guys see me right there? So by leaving that open, I'm able to work stitches into that space there. That is a magic loop. Okay. It's that easy. It's just, you're not completing a slip knot. If I were completing a slip knot, I would pull that closed and I have a slip knot, right? Like I have a slip knot ready to go and I could use it. But if we leave that slip knot open, we can use that as a magic loop. So here we go again. Yarn tail in the palm of my hand. Take your working yarn, wrap it around your forefinger and your middle finger. And when you come back up, cross over. Rotate your hand over. Okay, when you do that, you still have that crossover down there. Take your hook, go underneath the front loop, grab that back loop and just pull it up. Okay. Now, when you take your fingers out of the loop, keep it open. Don't let it close. All right. Keep it open. I don't care if it's really big and open or whatever. You just do whatever you need to do to keep it open. You see that cross there? That was the cross that was underneath our fingers. I usually will grab it and pinch it so it doesn't go anywhere. And then that keeps my magic loop open. Okay. All right, so here we go. So we have a loop on our hook. That loop we pulled, I gotta manage my finger. That loop we pulled up, it's on our hook. So we are ready to begin. So it says we're gonna do 8 single crochet in this loop. It doesn't tell us to start with the chain 1 or anything because we already have this loop on our hook, right? So here's what you do. I usually will make my loop really nice and big because I have big fingers and I like to be able to see what's happening. If you go into this loop, so we're going to go into the loop, yarn over and pull up. Nope, that's not going to work. I'm going to chain 1. It doesn't say to chain 1, you guys. I'm going to chain 1. You ready? We've pulled up the loop. I'm going to just chain 1. Now I'm going to do my 8 single crochets. You ready? So I go into the loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. So now I have 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and draw through 2. So that's 1. All right, everything's still twisted. There's my twist. I haven't let it go. I still have this big loop open and I have to do 7 more single crochet. So I go into that big loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. Into the loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. In, around, and up, around, and pull through 2. I've lost count of how many I've done, but I'm going to keep going and then I can count and I can show you guys. If you're like me and your little tail here is getting a little bit short and you're like, oh, I don't want it to fall out, you can pull it a little bit and it'll start to tighten up that loop that we're working around, but it'll make it so that your tail doesn't fall. Okay. So I'm going to do this again. So I'm into that loop, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, draw through 2. When you've lost count, if you're like me, I always turn my stitches up like so, and I look for the V on the top of my stitch, and that will help me count. So for each V I see, that's 1 stitch. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you never count the loop on your hook. So I would do 2 more single crochet. So there's 1 and 2. All right. We've got our 8 single crochets around our magic loop, and then the instructions say we're supposed to join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet we did. To which a lot of beginners will be like, well, how am I supposed to get all the way over there? My stitches are over here, right? That's the beauty of the magic loop. This tail here, if we pull it, that tail is threaded inside of those stitches that we just worked around. So when we pull this tail, it's going to pull this from over here through those stitches, and it's going to snug it up. Okay, you ready? It's like magic. I'm going to elongate this so it doesn't go anywhere, so I can do this. I'm just going to pinch. This is my single crochet I just finished. I'm just going to pinch it so that I can show you how to do this. Here's my tail. This is like magic. It's going to pull from over here, come out here, and it's going to tighten this up to make a nice little circle. So I start to pull. It's pulling. You see that? It's pulling it together. Give it a nice pull. Look at that. Look at that. Right there is where we worked into. Okay. Here's the stitch that was on my hook. I'm going to put it back on my hook. Okay. Put it back on my hook. I just took it out to demonstrate for you guys. Now, when it tells me to slip stitch into the first single crochet, look, the single crochet is right there waiting for me. I don't have to go far looking for it. I simply go underneath both of those V's of the first single crochet, yarn over, pull a loop up. So I have 2 loops on my hook, and I'm going to pull this first loop through the back loop, the front loop through the back loop, pull it through. It's called a slip stitch. So right there, you've created the first little bit. Kind of a side note, you can create these little things and make them into buttons. You can make them all sorts of little things if you want to. Yes, it's like Houdini. It's like magic. It's a fun little trick. How's everybody doing with the magic loop? I want to make sure that we're good. This is like a magic loop, adjustable ring, magic circle. It's the way a lot of people will talk about it. We've demonstrated here with single crochets. You absolutely could do this with double crochets. Instead of starting with that chain 1, like I start with the chain 1 when I'm doing singles. You would start like with the chain 2 or chain 3 for doubles, whatever you decide to do. But yes, look at that. You guys are so excited. Can you do it again? I absolutely can. I'm actually going to grab another thing of yarn to show you how to do it so I don't have to take this one out. Let me grab some yarn here. I'm just going to grab some pink yarn. All right, here we go. I'm going to show you the magic loop one more time. I have the tail of the yarn in the palm of my hand. Take my working yarn, wrap it around my forefinger and middle finger. And when I come back up, I cross it over. Rotate my hand over. It keeps that cross. Take my hook, go underneath the front loop, grab that back loop. Now, when I take my fingers out, I want to pinch where I crossed over right there. And I don't want to let that hole collapse that my fingers were into. All right. It's a little tricky here at the beginning, but that's essentially what it looks like. Okay. Now I am right-handed, so I have to get the tension in my right hand. Now at this point, the pattern does not say to yarn over once before you jump into your single crochets, but like you saw, I do. So right here, you would yarn over 1. I'd say yarn over, chain 1, you chain 1. And now you would jump into doing your 8 single crochets. And essentially, you're just doing your 8 single crochets over that cross. So you're going into that big space, yarning over, pulling up a loop. So you have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, draw through 2. That's your first single crochet. And you do it again. Is that helpful, guys? Okay. All right. You
Marley,
got it?
question
Yes.
from Kathleen. If you have the yarn on the hook, how many stitches before you make the double crochets in the magic circle?
So you're actually doing single crochets
Mm.
in your magic circle. And so I had one loop on my hook before I started. So here we go. I'm going to back up again. I'll do this one more time. Tail in the palm of my hand. Take the working yarn, wrap it around my forefinger and middle finger. And when I come back up, I cross over. Rotate my hand over. Go underneath the front loop. Grab the back loop and take it off. All right. Can you see that's it's like I have a loop on there. This is the crossover. That's the cross we created when I said cross it over. You just pinch it, keep a hold of it so it doesn't go anywhere. It's right there. So you have this big gaping loop here, and there's the cross, this little crossover. That's what does all the magic. And then I usually will start off just like you start off any crochet row, like either with a chain 1 or chain 2 or whatever it is you're making. Chain 1 because we're doing single crochets. And then I go into the loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. And that gives me my first single. And I would just continue doing that. Hopefully that is helpful. All right. If anything, watch the recording and rewind that, and just hopefully I've gone slow enough where it makes sense to you. Because at the end, like say you only wanted those 4 right there. Watch this. So let's extend up so that doesn't go anywhere. Let's watch this magic again because it's just so cool. Even if it was just 4 single crochets, you could pull this. Look at that. It just goes, pulls it right on snug. And it just whips it around. And you just single crochet into that first. You have a little tiny circle. All right. So that's the first big hurdle we're going through as far as this being a little bit more beginner friendly. All right. It's that magic circle. If this magic circle is too hard for you, what you could do is chain 2 and then into that first chain you created. Here, let me just show you. If that magic circle is too hard, you could just do a slip knot and put a slip knot on your hook. All right. So it's just like what we just did, only you actually do a full slip knot. You could chain 2. And what this has done is we're going to say that this chain right here, the second one you did, the first one that's behind the loop on your hook, we're going to say that that is the chain 1 that I did after my magic circle. And we're going to treat this first chain right here, we're going to treat that like it's our circle. So you're just going to put all 8 of your single crochets into that one chain. So now you do 1 and you would do another one in it. 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 You guys see how this works? Like, so if the magic circle is too difficult, you could do this. The only downfall, or not the only downfall, the downfall to this as opposed to the magic loop or the adjustable circle or adjustable ring, whatever you want to call it, is that you do get a little bit of a hole in the center, right? Because we can't pull it closed. However, I don't even know how many single crochets I've done. However, because we have this nice tail, you simply weave your tail or use your tail and weave that little hole closed. I mean, it's so small. You could absolutely weave that closed and it would be fine. So don't let the fact that this pattern has you start with an adjustable ring hinder you from completing it. Does that make sense, everybody? Yeah, give me a thumbs up. I'm looking at you. Awesome, awesome. All right, so that is an option for you. Here we go. We're going back to this one. So I've joined with a slip stitch and I'm ready to carry on. And this is where we're going to jump in and we're going to, this would be round 2. And we're going to learn how to do a puff stitch. All right, everybody. Now, as we do these puff stitches, we have 8 single crochets and we're going to put a puff stitch in each one of these single crochets. And we're going to separate each puff stitch with a chain 1. And this is going to go back to our little note that we said at the beginning. I'm going to mention it to you here in just a second. So the pattern says for us to chain 1 And then it says puff stitch in the same stitch. So in this same stitch right here that we joined into, that same one that we joined into, we're going to create a puff stitch. Now on page 1 of the pattern, it gives you details for how to do the puff stitch, but don't look at the pattern, just watch what I'm showing you. All right, you ready? We're going to yarn over our hook. I like to hold that yarn over so it doesn't get any tighter or any looser. I just hold it with my middle finger. Now I'm going to go into the stitch. I'm going to yarn over my hook and pull up a loop. Now, this is one of the exceptions where normally I only pull up the loop so the loop is the same size as my hook. When I do puff stitches, I pull it up so I get a little bit of length. All right, you see that? So that was 1. We're going to do that 4 times total. So this will be our second one. We're going to yarn over. I hold that yarn over on my hook, go into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Again, I make sure this loop I just pulled up is the same height as the other loop I pulled up so that they all look like, you know, I have some height to them. Make sense so far? So that's 2. Yarn over your hook again. Hold that yarn over on there. Go into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Make sure it's the same height. So that's 3. 1 more. Yarn over my hook, hold it, go into the same stitch, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop. Make sure it's the same height. At this point, I have 9 loops on my hook. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The pattern itself tells you to always do that yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop until you have 9 loops. So I'm telling you that you have to do that 4 times. So you'll have the loop on your hook to start, and then 4 times you'll go through that sequence I just showed you, and that will give you your 9 loops. All right, so we're not done with the puff stitch yet. You ready? So we haven't completed it because we have to yarn over and draw through all 9 loops, but it's still not done. We want to make sure that we are going to close the top of this, right? Because if we left it there, see how those are just kind of open willy-nilly? We want to close them. So you have to close them with a chain 1. So I'm going to chain 1. That chain 1 I just did, that is what the note was telling you at the beginning. It's telling you that that chain 1 does not count as the chain 1 we're going to put between our puff stitches. That chain 1 just counts as the completion of this puff stitch. Does that make sense? Okay, that's very important because that's where a lot of people get super confused. So we just did that chain 1 to complete this puff stitch. Now the instructions say to chain 1. So yes, you're going to do another chain 1 because this is a separate chain 1 from the puff. Coincidentally, this chain 1 we just did, that's what's going to allow this second row to increase and be larger than this first round that we did. All right. So that was 1. That was 1 stitch. We have 8 of them. So let's go ahead and do the next. So we're going to, I kind of rotate my little round here that I've created. I find the next stitch. So it's right there. And we do another puff stitch. So here we go. Yarn over our hook. Go into that next stitch, yarn over our hook, pull up a loop. I give myself a little bit of height. Notice I'm always using my middle finger to like hold those stitches and make sure that they keep the same tension. So that was 1, here's 2. So I yarn over my hook, go into the same stitch, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop. Here's number 3, yarn over my hook, go into the same stitch, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop. This will be number 4, yarn over my hook, go into the same stitch, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop. If you ever lose count on how many you've done, just count how many loops you have. You should have 9. Once you get that, you yarn over, draw through all 9 loops, and then you have to complete that puff stitch with that chain 1. That chain 1 at the end, see how it gives us that V at the top of the puff stitch? It's like that chain 1 is like the hat on the puff stitch. It's what allows us to have something to work into on the next round. Or if this were rows, or if these were rows, it would be the next row. Does that make sense? That chain one allows us to keep that nice, consistent crochet look. So that completes our puff stitch. Now the instructions say to chain one, that's our increase. And now we go to the next single crochet and do another puff stitch. You're going to be very familiar with puff stitches, y'all. I'm going to keep going slow here so that you can see it. If you are getting this and you want to cruise along, go for it. Yarn over my hook. I use my middle finger to hold that to my hook. Insert into the next stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over my hook. Insert into that same stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over my hook. Insert into the stitch. Yarn over my hook and pull up a loop. Now I lost count, so I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have one more. Yarn over my hook, go into the stitch, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop. So I have 9 loops on my hook. Yarn over, draw through all 9 loops, and complete it with its top hat, which is a chain one. Now we do a chain one as our increase, and we go to the next. You guys getting this? Does this help going this slow? Yeah, I've actually never taught like beginners how to do puff stitch, so I'm trying to go super slow here. It's just the same motion. You make quite a few of these. Yep, it's kind of like a cap on the top of the puff stitch. One of the 9 loops is the chain one, correct? No. So as you yarn over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's my 9 loops. I yarn over, pull through all 9 loops. And then I do a yarn over and pull through as the top hat. This is not a popcorn. A popcorn is slightly different than this. And then I chain one. All right, could you show a little more closely on how to go into the stitch? Yep, let me see if I can do that. All right, so I've chained my one for my increase and I'm getting ready to start another puff stitch right there. So there's the top of my stitch of my single crochet. You see the V there? All right, I'm not just going through the back leg, just the front leg. I'm going through both legs. So it's like I have the V will be essentially like resting on top of my hook. All right, you ready? So I have a loop on my hook. I yarn over. Here's the stitch. I'm going to go into it. Then I yarn over, pull up a loop. I always use my pointer finger or my middle finger to hold those stitches. I yarn over, go into that same stitch because now it's all spaced out for me and I can find it. Yarn over, pull up a loop. So that was 2. So I have 2 more to do. Yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. So I have 9 loops on my hook, yarn over, draw through all 9 loops. And I finish it with its top hat, which is that little chain one. It just closes it all up. Now I have to do my chain one for my increase. All right, I'm going to zoom through these last ones so that way I can get to the next one, okay? Don't be afraid. It's the same thing, but I am going to go faster so that way we can make sure that we can get to the majority of this bunny. If you have questions at all in the chat, please go ahead and ask them. Patricia will relay them to me here, but I'm going to get through here. Puff stitches are yarn eaters, you guys. So if you ever pick another project with the puff stitch, it takes a lot of yarn. So make sure you have plenty of it so you don't run out. So if you find it hard to pull the loop through or pull your hook through the loops, I will give you my little tip. I just lost my count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Here's what I do. So the first thing, what I mentioned about pulling those up and giving yourself some space and giving some height to your puff stitches, that will help you because if you look here to the side, you're giving yourself a little bit more room here, not only for your yarn over, but for your stitches you pulled up to get your hook through, all right? The other thing is, as you're pulling your hook through, make sure your hook, so I'm gonna hold this flat, make sure your hook isn't pointed towards you or away from you. Have your hook pointing down. You see how pointing down? By doing that, your stitch is sort of like a teardrop, right? So by pointing your hook down, we're letting that hook portion go to the bottom of the teardrop, and it allows it for easier movement through those loops. So as I yarn over and I go through these loops, I will also grab the base of the loops I pulled up, and I'm actually pulling them down, and on my hook, I'm pushing it up. So I'm like, you see that? Can you see that little tension there? When I do that, now I'm going to pull that hook all the way through, and it's nice and graceful. Then I yarn over to do my chain one for my top hat, and then I chain one for my increase. Now, when in doubt, if you're like, ooh, is that another space there? Should I do another puff stitch there? Count how many you've done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've already done 8 puff stitches. So that little space there is not a puff stitch. So after I do that chain one for my increase, I'll come over here and I'm going to join with a slip stitch into the top of my first puff stitch. And you know where the top of my first puff stitch is? It's that chain one I did there. It's the one that was the top hat. So I just go right underneath it, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull that loop through. You see that? All right, how many of you are doing it? Show me. Let me see, let me see. Oh, look at that. Look at you guys. Linda, good job. Look at Jamie's on her way, pretty pink. Mary has it going. Is it D or Die? Awesome. Oh, I'm so proud of you guys. Good job. Good job. All right, so here we go. On the next round, we are going to continue. Good job, Tina. We're going to continue doing these puff stitches, but this time we have to increase again, right? Because every time you do another round on something, you have to increase it. Otherwise, it's going to cup in on itself. So what you'll notice is on this one, you know, here's my 8 puff stitches. On the next round, we have a lot more. We have 16. And you could be like, well, Marley, how are you going to get 16 puff stitches when you only have 8 stitches here? Well, the answer is we are not only going to put a puff stitch in the top of our puff stitches, but we're going to put one in that increased chain one space. And it's going to give us 16. So this round takes a bit because it's a lot of puff stitches, but you know how to create them now. Let's go ahead and jump in and get this first one going. So this would be round 3. And the good news is there's only these 2 rounds of puff stitches for this, right? So round 3, we chain 1. And then it says puff stitch in the stitch. So it would be puff stitch into this one that you joined into, okay? And then you chain 1, and which will be your increase. And then you'll puff stitch into this chain 1 space. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna do my puff stitch here. So I yarn over, go into that same space that I joined with my slip stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go into the same stitch, same space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, repeat, and yarn over, repeat. I have 9 loops on my hook. Notice again, I'm pulling down and pushing up with my hook. So when I yarn over, I can have that hook glide right on through. And then I chain 1 like it's a top hat of my puff stitch. Fantastic. So that completes my puff stitch. Now the instructions say to chain 1, which gives us an increase so that it doesn't cup on ourselves. And now we've got to do another puff stitch into this chain 1 space. You don't have to go into the actual chain, like you don't have to work into the chain. I mean, unless you want to, but honestly, you don't have to, because if you do that, it leaves this little loop hanging down there. You know, I call it like the butt of the stitch. Don't let your butt hang out. Let's wrap that up. But we're going to do that by putting our puff stitch around the entire chain 1 space. And that's going to just tuck away that entire chain, and it makes it really nice and neat. So I'm just going to work my puff stitch all around the chain 1 space. Make sure I get my 9 loops on there. Yarn over, pull through, do my chain 1 for my top hat, my chain 1 for my increase. You with me on that? How you guys feeling? Is that good? All right, we're doing good so far. How did you start the second round? I did the chain 1, and then I did a puff stitch right into the same stitch that we joined. So I did the whole puff stitch, I chained 1, and then I did a puff stitch into the chain 1 space right next to it. Okay. Am I going to have time to do the head? So I think so. That's going to be my goal. How about that? I think if I do this for like another 4 minutes, just to show how to do these, and then I'm going to pull in that swatch that I worked up to the point of the head. So that way we can talk about that, because there's a couple things I want to talk about there. Can you please show for a second how you keep the tension in your left hand? Sure. So for me, I wrap my yarn around my pinky finger a couple times, and then I take my 3 other fingers. So I wrap the yarn around my pinky fingers, and my 3 other fingers go underneath. And my pinky finger really keeps the tension. And I guess as I move it, that's what allows me to give it more feed. You know what? I will tell you, if you're not familiar with how to hold tension in your own yarn, you will find a way that works for you, and you won't even realize you've done it. It's just one day you're going to realize you tend to hold the yarn the exact same way every time. I know that when I first learned to crochet, I tried several different ways to hold the yarn until something just clicked for me. You know what I mean? To save on yarn, could you potentially do only 3 times instead of 4 times? That way you'd get 7 loops. Absolutely. You absolutely could do that. So your puff stitches wouldn't be as dense, but yes, you could absolutely do that. Or if you wanted them even more, like you could create more should you want to. There are no rules, guys. You can make this however you want. You can make it variegated, you can make it solid, you can make it stripes, you can make it big, you can make it small. I mean, and honestly, now that you understand the concept of, okay, you have 8, and then to get to 16, you're doing 1 in the puff stitch and 1 into the chain 1 space. If you wanted to do it bigger, you could do another round of puff stitches into the puff stitch, 1 into the chain 1 space, and so on and so forth, right? Like you just keep making it exponentially bigger and make a bigger rabbit, bunny, if you wanted to. You'd have to tweak the head a little bit, but you could do it. All right. So I'm gonna try and get this here. Ooh. See, if I don't hold that yarn over on my hook, it falls off on me. I hate that. Or it gets way too tight when I go back down. Look at me, I'm talking and not paying attention. It gets way too tight when I go back down to go into my stitch. So I yarn over. If I don't hold that and I come down here and come back up, it makes my yarn over way too tight. Yarn over, go in, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, go in, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, go in, yarn over, pull up. The cool thing is that this round is just like the previous round. Only exception is that we're putting that puff stitch in that chain 1 space. Okay, guys? All right, so that would be round 3. Round 4 is simply just putting single crochets in the top of your puff stitches, and then 2 single crochets in the chain 2 space. You got it? So I'm going to set this aside. And this other one, you guys, I know that you'll feel my pain. I pulled from the outside of the ball, y'all. It's so annoying. Oh my gosh. Okay. So right here, if I undo this sum, so this here, you know, that's the first round. Here's the second round. Here's the third round. Here's where I've started the 4th round. And the 4th round, I chain 1, single crochet into the top of that puff stitch, and then 2 single crochet into this space. 1 single, 2 singles, 1 single, 2 singles. And I do that all the way around. So even over here, as I pick this up, I can look at this and be like, okay, so there's my one single into the puff. So into this chain 2 space right there, I'm going to put 2 singles. So there's 1 and 2. Then I'm going to put 1 single into this puff stitch, and then 2 into the chain 1 space. 1 and 2. 1 into the puff stitch, and 2 into the chain 1 space. 1 and 2. And it says join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet. So there's the first single crochet, and I'm joining with the slip stitch. Now, from this point forward, we're going to work on the head of the bunny. Now, the head of the bunny, it says that is worked in rows back and forth. Now, one thing that I don't really like about this pattern is it doesn't tell you. So like this would be, if you're looking at your work, this would be the right side. And this right here would be the back side or the wrong side. Okay. They just look, it's a subtle difference, but they look just a little bit different, right? The first row, it doesn't tell us if we're supposed to turn at this point or not. Like after I finish round 4, it doesn't say turn my work. Okay. So I'm going to assume that I'm not supposed to turn my work as I continue on to round 1. And I'm coming to that assumption because round 2, it does tell me to turn. So I'm going to assume that the pattern is correct and follow the pattern. Okay. So if you're ever in doubt with that, do exactly what I just did. I was like, okay, row 1, I don't know if I'm supposed to be on this side or if I'm supposed to be on this side because the pattern didn't tell me to turn. And then you begin to question yourself, am I supposed to turn? Am I not supposed to turn? Well, I'm going to assume that because on row 2, in the head for row 2, it tells me to turn after I chain 2. And it does the same thing on row 3 and on row 4. I'm going to assume I am not supposed to turn on row 1. Okay. So that's how I am deciphering this. That's how you would decipher this for a pattern on your own. Okay. So all that means here is I'm at the end of this round, I would chain 1, single crochet in the same stitch and the next 8 stitches. So I will single crochet 1 here, and then I have to do 8 more. So I'm gonna have 9 single crochets total. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that was my, okay, that completes my 8 singles. So I should have 9. Again, if you want to count, always look for the top of the V of the stitch. That's what I do. It's like the top hat of the stitch, right? Every stitch has it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Great. I have 9 single crochets. That's what they say to have in the pattern. That's perfect. Now I'm supposed to chain 2. So I chain 1, chain 2. And here is where it says to turn. So this is where I was like, all right, so that's what I'm supposed to do. It says turn. It also says that this half double crochet counts as a stitch. All right, great. That's awesome. Now I know that. So now I'm supposed to do a half double crochet in the same stitch and in each of the next 8 stitches across. So I'm going to increase 1 stitch. Now a half double crochet is very similar to the puff stitches you were doing. You will yarn over your hook. Again, I hold my yarn over. You'll go into this first stitch here because the pattern tells us to. So go into this first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now, because I'm not creating a puff stitch, I don't elongate that. I keep that loop I just pulled up, I keep it the same size as my hook. All right. I have 3 loops on my hook. I will yarn over and go through all 3 loops. And you'll notice even here, I grab the bottom of those yarn overs and I kind of pull on them to be able to pull that hook through very easily. All right. So that would count as 2 half double crochets because this initial chain 2 counts as a half double. Now I'm going to put a half double in each one of these all the way down. So I yarn over, go into the next, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, draw through all 3 loops. Yarn over, go into the next, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3. Yarn over, go into the next, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all three. Yarn over, go on to the next. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, draw through all three. You with me on this? So I'm going to keep going here all the way to the end. And I should end up with 10 half double crochets. Remember, we're going to count that first chain 2 as a half double. Coming all the way down. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, everybody with me so far? Okay, this next row, this is probably what throws this pattern technically into an intermediate, is because you're going to be doing post stitches. All right. All that means is that instead of creating our stitch into the V of the stitch, into that top hat, we're going to create our stitches around the post of the stitches we just created. So I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to turn. And it says I'm supposed to do a front post half double crochet around the first stitch. So around this first stitch right here, and in each stitch all the way across. So here's how you do a front post half double crochet, you guys. You're going to yarn over your hook. You're going to come here from the right side of the post, go around the back of the post, and come out the left side. So see how the post of the stitch is resting on my hook? Where before, when I do my regular stitches, it's like my V is resting on my hook. I've essentially just put my hook around the post of that half double crochet I did in the previous row. Now I have to yarn over, and yes, it comes across the stitch there. You see that? It comes across the stitch. I yarn over, and I want to bring my hook back through the same path. So I take my hook and I'm going to pull that yarn over out that side of the post, behind and back over here to the right, and pull it up. So now what you have, this was my initial loop on my hook. This was my yarn over. This is the yarn over I just grabbed and pulled back. So I have 3 loops on my hook. I yarn over and draw through all 3 loops. All right, we're gonna do that again. If this was a normal stitch, I would be going into that space right there, right? That's the top of the next half double, but we're supposed to do post stitches. So we're going to work around that post. All right. So I yarn over my hook, going from right, go in, around the back, out the left. Everybody see that? I yarn over my hook. Yes, it comes up and over and goes all the way over there so I can get it. Now I take my hook back that same path. So I go out the left, behind the back, come back to the right. Yarn over, draw through all 3. We're gonna do that all the way down. Yarn over my hook, go around the next post. So I go in through the right, around the back, out the left, yarn over, and then follow that same path back. If you're left-handed, it would be opposite. You'd be going in the left, around the back, out the right. Okay, it's just the opposite, but it's the same motion, same premise. But if you're left-handed, it goes opposite. I'm just trying to go really slow so you guys can see this, because I think this is the part that would really kind of throw people off just a little bit, because it's abnormal. Now, here's the thing, y'all. Just like I gave you an option if you didn't want to use the adjustable ring or the magic loop or whatever you want to call it, do you have to do these post stitches? Absolutely not. You could just half double crochet in the top of each one of these stitches all the way down. What you would have to do though is start with the chain 2 instead of a chain 1, and then just work your half double crochets to get 10 half double crochets. So you absolutely do not have to do these front post half double crochets. All right, you don't have to do that. But if you want to follow the pattern, you do. Now let's make sure I have enough, because I usually come up short. I don't know why. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. So does it look a little strange? I mean, does it look different? I think it looks pretty cool. I mean, you see how cool that is? All right, so row 4, we would chain 1, turn our work. It says skip the first stitch. So we're going to skip this first one. So the one that's right here. Okay, that first one, the first V, the first top hat, we're going to skip that. Single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So I'll single crochet in the first one. I'm just doing it like normal, guys. I'm going to the top of the stitch, just like before. So I go in, there's 1 and 2. Then it says single crochet 2 together. Don't get stuck on this. This is really easy, okay? We're going to go into the first one, yarn over, pull up a loop. Go into the next one over. Oop, sorry. I even have it on, I have it on do not disturb every time. Okay. So I went into the stitch. I'm going to start that all over so we don't get stuck. I go into the stitch. I'm supposed to do a single crochet 2 together. I yarn over, I pull up a loop. I go into the next stitch over, I yarn over, I pull up a loop. So I have 3 loops on my hook. I yarn over, draw through all 3 loops. So when I do that, I get a resulting 1 top stitch, one top of the stitch, but I've used up 2 of my stitches below. So I've decreased 1. Now I'm supposed to single crochet into the next 3 stitches. And these are individually done, not together or anything. So there's 1, then I go to the next one and I'll create another one. And I'll go to the next one and I'll create another one. Now I'm supposed to do a single crochet 2 together. So we'll do that again. Go into the first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the top of the next stitch, which is a little bit tricky. Just try and find it. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3. All right, so just gave us this subtle decrease. All right, so I have 7 single crochet. So, that's the head. So we have finished the head. The first ear, we're supposed to chain 1 and turn. Now it says I'm supposed to skip the first stitch, single crochet in the next 2. So there's 1 and 2. Chain 1 and turn. So I'm going to leave all of those stitches unworked. All right. Then I will single crochet in the stitch in the next 2. So I'm going to single crochet in 3 stitches. Wait, chain 1, single crochet in the stitch, 2 single crochet in the next. Single crochet in 1, 2 single crochet in the next one. So I have 3 stitches. Chain 1, turn, single crochet in each stitch across. And I'm going to do this for 3 rows, 4 rows, rows 3, 4, 5, and 6. So here's row 3. So 1, 2, 3 single crochets, chain 1, turn. Here's my row 4. Chain 1, turn. Here's my row 5. These are just single crochets, you guys. I'm not doing anything special, just single crochets. Chain 1, turn. Here's my row 6. 1, 2, and 3. All right. Whew. Come over here. Row 7, chain 1, turn, skip the first stitch, 3 half double crochets in the next stitch, and then slip stitch in the last. So I'm going to yarn over my hook, skip the first stitch, come to the middle stitch here, and do 3 half double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. And then to bring it all home, to make it kind of curved into this last single crochet there that we have, you insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull that loop through. See how that curved all of that real nice and neat? All right, and then you're just going to fasten it off. So you'll grab your scissors. Here's a pro tip: add a pom-pom to your scissors. You'll never lose them. Cut your tail, leaving a nice long tail. I always finish with it when they say fasten off, I usually will chain one and then I just pull that yarn all the way through. It just locks it in place. But right there, you have one ear. I know I'm about out of time. The second ear though, it says skip the next skip stitch next to inner edge of stitch of first ear. Wow, that doesn't attach yarn with the slip stitch. So essentially, this is the front of your bunny, right here. It says you're going to skip the stitch to the inner edge stitch of first ear. So here's the inner edge. You'll skip this one. It says we'll go to this one, and it looks like we're going to join with a slip stitch, chain one, and then it says single crochet in the same stitch in the next two. So that would be this one, and that one, because there are 4 stitches here. So you skip the middle, and you're going to work over these 3. You with me? Let me show you. I don't know how much time I have, but I can get through as much as I possibly can. Again, I have to pull from the outside. I hate when I do that. Who can relate to that? Hands up. When you pull from the outside, you think you have the inside, and then you're like, oh, darn it. You're already so far in, you don't want to start over. I hate that. All right, so I'm joining with a slip stitch. So I'm just putting my hook into that stitch that I'm supposed to join with. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through. All right, so that's my slip stitch. Now it says to chain 1, single crochet where you joined with the slip stitch and in the next 2 singles. So we're going to get 3 stitches here. All right. Oh no, 2. Is that right? Same stitch and then next stitch. Oh, you know what? I think I'm supposed to skip 2 of them. That didn't make sense because I have 4 stitches there. 1, 2. I'm going to come all the way over here. That's what I'm going to do. Join with my slip stitch, chain 1, single into here, and single into here. And chain 1 and turn. It says 2 single crochet in the next stitch. So I'm going to do 1 and 2. So I put 2 into one of them and then 1 into the next to give me 3. Chain 1 and turn. And this would be my row 3. And I'm just single crocheting into each one of those. Oops. Chain 1, turn. This would be my row 4. Chain 1, turn. This is row 5. Goodness gracious. When you're trying to go fast, your hook falls out. Chain 1, turn. This would be row 6. Chain 1, turn. 7th and final row. Yarn over my hook, skip the first one, go to the next one, do 3 half doubles. So 1, 2, and 3. Go to the last one, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull that loop through. Go ahead and grab my scissors. Yarn over, pull that loop through, carry it on. So you weave in your tails. So there's that part. There's that bunny. Now you have the edging. It says the right side facing, attach the yarn with the slip stitch to the back loop of the first stitch of the body. Wherever you want to hook. So that would be like right back here, right? First stitch of the body, maybe right here. And then you would go ahead and slip stitch in the back loops all the way around the body. It's just going to make it a little bit more secure. So you could do that. Yeah, that's it. And then a pom-pom tail, you can create a pom-pom. You could buy some like Pompadoodle and like cut a little pom-pom off and just glue it on, sew it on. I mean, literally, you don't even have to have a pom-pom, but you know what? You have to have a pom-pom because that's the little bunny tail. That's super cute. Which, by the way, is going to totally cover up your magic loop. So if your magic loop is not looking good, or if you did this one where it has a hole, like it really matters, your pom-pom is going to cover it. So boom, you just won. All right. I'm going to call that complete for this pattern. Are you guys good with that? Yeah. I feel like I made you laugh a little bit, so that's good. Just a little bit. Look at that. Tina is on her way. Juliana, how's it going? Going good? I can see it. Perfect. Lisa, it's looking good. Oh, love it. Love it. Love it. Gina. Oh, Gina's good. Linda, that's great. Oh, I'm so proud of you guys. Michelle, that's fantastic. You know what, guys? Honestly, it's so gratifying for me as a teacher to do a class like this, because I know it's so fast, but then seeing you guys work along with me and actually, like, you're like, I got this. And seeing those aha moments of, you're like, I've never been able to do a puff stitch before. I've never been able to do a magic circle or adjustable ring or whatever you want to call it. Or maybe you've never been able to read a pattern and all of a sudden something I said clicked for you. It thrills my heart. And that's one of the biggest reasons I do these Michael's classes. It's just so much fun to see your satisfaction, your success. So I hope that you will share with us as you finish these little bunnies. Make sure you share with us, make it with Michael's or hashtag Yarnspirations, or with me personally, I'm just Marley Bird. So on Facebook, I'm Marley Bird. On Instagram, I'm the Marley Bird. But if you do hashtag Marley Bird, I will see your work. And if I see it, I will smash your like button and give you all the kudos. Okay, you guys? That's it for me. If you like these classes, make sure you check out all of the other ones that Michael's has to offer. I do teach classes over on my own YouTube channel, which is Marley Bird. You can check that out also. I hope y'all had fun and have fun with your little bunnies. That's my bunny impersonation. You like that? That's all you're going to get. I'm not going to put on a tail. I'm not putting on ears. It's not happening. Sorry.
Great job, everyone. And on behalf of Michael's and Yarnspirations, thank you for joining us today.
Jamie has a bunny. No, it's a doggy. Okay. I was like, is that a bunny? No, that's so cool. Good job, you guys.
Very big bunny.